if you work overtime or you have a second job or you have a side hustle where you earn extra money, is that income going to be included when calculating child support in Arizona? So first of all, my name is Robert Larson. I'm the owner of the Larson Law Office in Arizona. And this is an issue that comes up a lot, whether it's a divorce with children or it's a custody case. Anytime you're dealing with children, you're going to have child support as an issue. And sometimes people just earn a regular 40-hour paycheck, and it's very simple to calculate their income for child support purposes. So whether they're on a salary or an hourly rate, it's very simple to calculate how much money they earn. But sometimes people have other factors that make it more difficult. They could be self-employed, or maybe they get commissions, and so their income isn't always consistent, or maybe their work hours are not consistent. But in this situation, what I'm really talking about is people who work overtime, or maybe they get a part-time job, especially after separating. A lot of times people will go out and get a second job or side hustle. Maybe they're delivering food for people through one of the different apps that do that, or driving people around through one of the car sharing apps. Either way, if you're earning extra money, the question is that going to be considered income for child support purposes? So there's basically a general rule, and then there's a major exception to that rule. So the general rule is that child support is based on a 40-hour work week. So typically overtime would not be included with that. A second job, whether it's a part-time job or another full-time job, generally would not be included as well. If you're doing driving on the side or some other side hustle where you're earning some money, that's not going to be included as well. However, the exception says that if this was a normal part of your work schedule, and especially if it's an expected part of your employment, then it can be included. So there's an exception that does give judges a little bit of leeway and a little discretion to decide whether to include it or not. So for example, if you're someone who has a 40-hour work week and occasional opportunities come up to work overtime, and you take advantage of some of those opportunities, that's generally not going to be included in your income for child support. If you have a second job, that's not going to be included. However, if you, let's say you have a job where you work at a hospital. This doesn't have to be a hospital, but this often comes up with medical careers, where basically sometimes people will work 3 12-hour shifts in one week and then 4 12-hour shifts the next week. Well, that's just part of your regular schedule. So the 1 week where you work 36 hours, there's no overtime, so there's nothing to consider there. But the next week when you work 48 hours, you get overtime for those 8 hours. If that's part of your regular schedule, that's going to be included, because that's just part of what's expected for you to work. So that's where it comes in, or that's how the exception applies. And it can be a little confusing though. The example I gave right there was fairly simple, but sometimes it's a lot more complicated than that, and it really comes down to whether the judge is going to, what decision the judge is going to make as far as whether that income is regular and expected and just a normal part of your work schedule. So anyway, it's not necessarily just the schedule either, it's your history. So do you have a history of working overtime, even if it is somewhat discretionary? So anyway, it can be complicated, but those are the general principles of that. And another thing that you may have caught on to as you're listening to this, right now I'm talking about overtime, but the reverse kind of also applies. Let's say you're only working 30 hours a week, or 32 or 35 or 25, whatever it is, the same principle would apply. They're still going to hold you accountable for working 40 hours, whether you are or not, when it comes to child support. So being a part-time worker does not mean that they're only going to go off of your actual income. They're going to base it off of your hourly rate at 40 hours per week, whether you're working that or not. So anyway, if you find this helpful, make sure to like and follow so you can get more. Thanks.